So we are doing our next one-on-one a lot sooner than I thought.
Yeah. What has it been? 2 days?
Talk about actioning our own feedback.
Yeah.
How have the last few days been for you? Busy. Oh, you're preparing for vacay.
Yeah.
How
Don't steal my
exciting.
thunder from my good news
Oh,
story.
shoot.
But
Yeah, well,
no, it's all good.
yeah, it is what it is. So let's go ahead and kick this off. We got a lot to talk about. And for our audience out there, when we wrapped up our last one-on-one, we realized that we literally just scratched the surface of our look back on the last 5-6 episodes. And so we figured that we should spend time on the other half of the what we typically dissect on our one-on-ones, and that's looking at the rapid fire questions and just sharing kind of our views and opinions on what our amazing guests have shared with us. So that's what we're going to be covering today. But before we do that, let's start with our good news story tradition ritual.
Let's do it. Do you want to go first or you want me to kick it off?
You take it.
All right.
I'll let you take it.
Yeah. So tomorrow I will be leaving to Barcelona. Going to be there for, I think, 4 nights. And then we're going to go to Rome for a few nights. But really looking forward to it. One of my wife's best friends is actually living there for the summer in Barcelona. So her and her boyfriend are hosting us. So they've already planned out like a spa day for us when we land. They're gonna have a car pick us up, the whole 9 yards. So I feel like we have a lot in store for us for the next
You and Tori
9-10 days. I know. And this is my first time going to Europe. So
oh wow.
Yeah.
Well,
or even overseas at all.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Well, at least you are kicking it off with a bang, because I have never been to Spain. I've spent a lot of time in Europe, never been to the OG motherland, Spain. And so yeah, I'm curious to hear how that experience is for you and Tori. But that's so awesome. My good news, I'll keep it on a travel tip. So today I booked our tickets for heading to California for my partner, her sister's wedding. And so we weren't sure if my daughters Astrid and Cora would be able to join us because it's on a Monday, but we were all clear, and so we got our tickets booked. So I am excited about that. And Sarah, my partner, her sister Laura is a listener, so shout out to Laura. We're excited about the upcoming wedding.
What's up, Laura?
Yeah, she has been an avid listener, and I love the texts that I get when she has things to call out on our show. So well, let's get into it then. Our rapid fire section, has evolved over time, but we typically ask our guests 3 questions. What advice would you give your 22-year-old self? We also ask what we call the magic wand question. If there's one thing you could change in, the people HR space, what would it be? And the last question we ask in the rapid fire section is what's coming next for the future of work. And so want to take some time to look back, and let's start with, advice. This is, I think, my favorite question. What advice would you give your 22-year-old self? I feel like it's something that we can all relate to. 22-year-old Steven was so super aggressive in the workplace, and was ready to be CEO of the company I was working for, even though that was highly unlikely. So I would have a lot of advice for 22-year-old Steven, but some of the things that our guests have shared like really, really stuck out to me. And so, I'll kick us off. I think I want to start with, Beth Steinberg and her response, because I just thought it was just awesome. Her number one piece of advice for her 22-year-old self is know when to hold them and know when to fold them. And but otherwise, like, pick your battles wisely, and don't hang on to these things that you should let go. And man, that is such a good piece of advice, because I feel like when I was new in my career, I it was important for my self-esteem that I was right. And I think that clouded my judgment, being new to the workplace, wanting to make an impact, I wanting to feel like I was worthy and that I was contributing. I had a huge tendency to just want to hang on to things and like argue things, even if it wasn't in the best interest of like my career growth or in the company. And so I think that was just such a wise piece of feedback. I don't know if that resonates with you.
It definitely resonates, but in a different way. Like I've always had the personality where if I come into a new situation and I see what I think are, 15 flaws in how we're doing things, I want to completely like tear everything down and rebuild something new. And it's easy to sort of get too wrapped up in your own personal opinions to where it's having an impact like on your mental health. And I think that just comes with like maturity and, being in the workforce for a little bit. While you might be right on some things, maybe there's context that you don't have for why they do things a certain way. Or, you know, and I guess one thing that I've actually learned is every company is different. And what's the winning recipe for one company isn't going to be the winning recipe for another company,
That's right.
especially in
That's right.
marketing and B2B marketing. And yeah, so I love this one. Pick your battles wisely. Like there's still a couple of things that I will stand my ground on and have very firm beliefs. But for everything outside of that, I'm very open to other people's ideas. And I'd say even the things that I have very firm beliefs on, I can be convinced otherwise. And I think back in the day, I had more of a fixed mindset. But
Yeah,
maybe that's it's like you said, you wanted to be the 22-year-old CEO that thought they knew everything.
yeah, I mean, there's a lot, and I think when you do the five whys, like why was I acting that way? Why was it important that why like ultimately I get to some, that's why I started with like, my self-esteem or wanting to be right or these things, because usually it's something like that behind the reason why I'm doing what I'm doing. But, related to what you just shared, I got a piece of feedback. It was at Goldman that Stephen, you need to bring people along for the ride. Like, not everyone is where you're at in forming your opinion and your view. And you could be 1,000% right. Like, you're smart, you've got some good ideas. So let's assume for a second that you're right. That doesn't mean that other people are going to be there, when you draw the conclusion. And so you've got to like bring people, you got to meet people where they're at and bring them along for the journey and get them there. And I just was impatient, right? And I was like, well, if you're not going to get there, then like this train is leaving. And that you don't make a lot of friends and positive healthy workplace relationships by steamrolling.
Yeah,
And so,
definitely not. Yeah.
yeah.
So
Another thing, go ahead. Go ahead.
no. If you have something to say about Beth's advice, then continue. I was going to make a
No,
comment about somebody else's that really
yeah, no.
resonated.
I was going to move on to the next piece, which for me was like slow down. And Stephanie Kramer shared that, you know, there's especially with like the speed of information and the, how we use technology so much in our lives that everything feels so fast. And that when she looks at things and a life is short, tomorrow's not guaranteed, that her immediate response is like, oh shit, I haven't achieved XYZ. And so I need to get it all done now and like get super stressed out. And for me, I think that That's great advice. I didn't really have that in from a work perspective, but certainly life. Like when you're in your 20s, you see your friends, are getting married and they're making moves, and maybe some people are buying homes and like doing this, and it's like you feel like everything is escaping you and that you're behind or you're falling behind, and it's like there's no race here. You
Yeah.
got
We
exactly
also all we see is like the highlight reel
right.
on Instagram, on LinkedIn. So I don't know. It creates like this false narrative that everybody's just like crushing life when everyone's just trying to figure it out just like you.
That's
And
right.
sometimes the journey might be longer for you than it is for somebody else. Um the advice
What
that
are the
really
yeah.
oh no, go for it.
No, I was gonna say what stood out to you?
Yeah, what stood out to me was Jackson's. So he talked about, I guess, a book that's called The Four Agreements. I still haven't read the book, but the it was actually the second time that I had heard somebody reference this book within a span of like 24 hours whenever he had brought it up. But the four agreements are: be impeccable with your word, don't take anything personally, don't make assumptions, and always do your best. And I feel like those are like four very simple rules that anybody could live by. And if they adhere to those four rules, they'd probably live a pretty good, lead a pretty good life. Within those four agreements, I feel like don't take anything personally resonated most with me. Again, going back to always wanting everything to be just or fair, or if I think something's right, I almost always had to like really stand up for it and I almost take it personally. But if you look at things from that lens, like don't take anything personally. So let's say I'm driving down the road and there's a guy that just all of a sudden starts honking at me, rolls down his windows, cussing me out, throwing me the finger. I shouldn't really take that personally because it probably has nothing to do with me. It has more to do with him than it does with me. And I feel like ever since I've sort of lived my life that way, I'm a lot happier person because I'm not always looking over my shoulder thinking that somebody's out to get me.
That's the part of Jackson's response to this question that really resonated with me. And I think the way he put it was, I've made a career out of taking things personally, or I made my life has been taking things personally. Like, what do you mean? Like, don't take anything personally. And it's so hard for me. My mind always jumps to like, oh, this is being done to me versus like this person is just doing what they're doing. Like, I'm not, it's not all about me. And I think the modern society, like today's society, I feel like too many people think that everything is revolving around them. And when you're looking at the world that way, then it's hard to not take it personally. And I think I think we got a societal problem with that, which is why it resonated with me so much. But yeah, the four agreements, you got to check it out. You got to check it out. It's a teeny tiny book. I think I might have an extra copy that I can give to you.
Yeah, send it over. Was there anything else that stood out to you?
No, I think that the only other thing that jumped out was Melissa Wernick's response just about what brought you here won't take you into the future, and learning from the past, also being able to look ahead and being open to change is kind of what I took away. And that's been so true for me. Like when I went from working at Goldman Sachs for 6.5 years to becoming an entrepreneur, I thought honestly that the skill set that I had worked so hard to develop was going to, really, help me in my entrepreneurial pursuits. And in some ways it has helped, but I think that was a big blind spot for me, that what made me successful in the past was not what would make me successful going forward. And that was a painful lesson for me because I had to essentially unlearn a lot of things because startups aren't like a large global investment bank. And I had to trust and believe that I could learn new things and that there were new skills and knowledge that I could pick up that would get me to where I wanted to be in my new career. But man, that was painful, painful.
Yeah, pretty in line with what her overall message of that episode was about. How Kraft Heinz was trying to move from a learn it all, or sorry, from a know it all to a learn it all culture. So I thought it was interesting that that would even be her advice to her young self early on in her career.
Yeah, that is interesting because that was the general theme. I hadn't caught
Yeah.
on to that.
Yeah.
What about the magic wand question? If you could change one thing in the people HR space, what would it be?
Yeah.
What jumped out to
So
you the last few episodes we've
I
had?
think I think Sierra's response. She talked a lot about how as an HR leader, you're having to understand a wide variety of perspectives, whether it's, the board or it's the executives on the team or it's, candidates or it's junior employees, senior employees. You're constantly having to balance all of these different perceptions. And she talks about how, as humans, we all experience a slightly different reality, and that creates a lot of misunderstanding and lack of validation. So, if she had a magic wand, she would use that magic wand to make everybody understand everybody else's perceptions and just having that understanding without it having to be explained. And I think she even said this is totally unrealistic and she wouldn't want there to be groupthink. But if there was a way for us to really have a deeper understanding and for that to be more fluid and seamless, then that would be amazing.
Yeah, it's almost like having
And I
the
feel like this isn't
ability.
even it's not even like
Go ahead.
HR magic wand. It's like just the world in general. Like this would
Yeah,
just fix a lot of things.
yeah, it's like a Jedi mind trick where you can see the bullet points that led to a person's point of view on something, and it's like,
Exactly.
oh,
Yeah.
they they're looking at things this way because they've had these experiences and these things have happened that
Yeah.
have gotten things here. Yeah, I mean that would be amazing. But again, apart from like being able to pick up on the force or like some weird, I don't know, big data algorithm thing that can like read your mind. Sometimes I feel like my iPhone does that because I like think things like, oh, my hair's looking a lot grayer today. I don't even say the things out loud. And next thing I know, I'm getting men's hair coloring products in my news feed and my Instagram feed. But yeah, who knows? I don't know how that would work and how we could get that deeper understanding. But man, that would be awesome. For me, the one that kind of jumped out, and not because I agree that that is the one magic wand thing to fix, but it was Jackson Lynch's response, which was breaking out people operations from talent management.
Mm-hmm.
His point was that these are like really different skill sets, and I think he even said that with people ops, you're more so focused on the process versus all of these other things that are happening within the organization culturally or from an engagement or from all of the organizational development perspective. And I feel like this, I would be curious how, like, if we were to pull the audience out there, how maybe we should do a LinkedIn poll and look at like how many people agree or disagree with this. But I feel like it could be pretty, I think it could bring some pretty strong opinions from people. The thing that what immediately triggered me, or where my head went rather, is I do know that there are, and I'm excluding names, people, and company names because let's just say I have people that are very close to me that are in HR, and they constantly are struggling with, I think, tension from people operations and talent being like this essentially in the same org. And what I mean by that is like the number one question that my friend gets when they are presenting ideas to their management is this scalable? How is this going to scale across the organization? And scale is important, but scale isn't everything. And when you're talking about people processes and people development, I think those two things, the best approach to getting the most out of your people may not always be scalable. And that may be okay. And so sometimes I feel like we have become too obsessed with scaling HR. And mind you, I early in my career in the early 2000s, when I joined, I was like, holy smokes, like, why are we doing things this way? Like, we've got to automate, we got to make things better. And I think that that's where this notion of scalable HR comes from. But I think that's very much of people looking at people problems through a people operations lens and not a talent management lens. And so, but that's just my point of view. And so I that's what stuck out to me the most of the last few episodes, but not because I necessarily agree with that. I think it's an interesting question.
Yeah.
Um,
That sort of reminds me of something that David Cancel was very adamant about early on when he started Drift. He used to say, in order to grow this business, we need to do things that don't scale. Like the way that we hire, we have to do it in a not scalable way. The way that we develop people, we have to do it in a not scalable way. The way that we're
yeah,
finding new clients, initially we need to do it in a not scalable way. And I think his thinking was that things that don't scale are probably going to be higher quality. I don't know what his thinking was, but maybe it leads to higher quality work. It leads to bringing in higher quality candidates, higher quality clients. And then once they got to a point where that didn't work anymore, I'm sure they had to scale some things, but that's
yeah,
where my mind immediately went when you were talking about that.
yeah. And I'm with him. I think if you want the best leadership development program, is that going to be an online learning course that you're going to expect your executives to like go to a LinkedIn Learning and take? Like, no, like I don't think that's the best approach to leadership development. But for a 40,000 employee company like Kraft Heinz, can you do custom training programs? No, like I get that also. And so it's an interesting question. I don't know what the right answer. And so I guess to that, as we kind of talk through this, now I can start to see why that's the one people problem that Jackson wanted to fix. Is there anything else that jumped out to you on this question?
So Beth, I don't know if this is the most interesting thing to talk about, but she talked about getting real-time comp data or better
Oh yeah.
access to comp data, how this is a big issue in people and talent. And she didn't give this context, but if I had to guess, this is probably very relevant for a lot of companies, especially tech companies or big corporations, because now with people working remote and people being dispersed across the country or the world, I'm sure it's tougher to figure out what you should be paying people because it's not so based on the region that that you live in or you're headquartered in. So I don't know. I thought that was interesting. I feel like we've briefly talked about that in the past, but never really got too deep into it.
Yeah. Another one similar but different is Melissa's answer to this question, which was business acumen, that HR people are still making a lot of decisions in isolation, and that few HR people or professionals are able to articulate and explain the company strategy. And we've talked about this one before also. And I think, again, it's like there's clearly a distinct group of HR executives that place the number one value. And I think Jackson, not in the answers to the rapid fire, but to, just the broader conversation we had with him, he was making this point, like the number one skill you should be building is an understanding of the business. Like, how does the revenue model work? What are the revenue cycles? What do those look like? And so to expand on that, I think that Melissa is right. I think HR has a tendency to know what's right for the business. And I think that that's insane. And that the only way to know what's right is to speak with the business directly. And I think until we are more proficient and in more business centric in the approach, I think there's a hesitancy to like engage in that communication with colleagues out in the business. And so that's another one that resonated with me, but I think we've talked about that one before as well.
Yeah. So what about what's coming next for HR? I have a couple. Well, I have one thing that stood out to me that I think both Beth and Sierra talked about. And it's that hybrid flex work is here to stay. So I think Beth was saying,
you stole that. That's what that's
I
mine
know.
Also.
That, yeah, she was like, most companies still don't know how to do this well. This is going to continue into 2023. So I agree with that. And I think Sierra was saying that there's going to be more employee choice hybrid work. So companies are going to stay in hybrid, and they're going to give their employees the ability to opt in to either fully remote, fully in office, or a combination of the two. But at the end of the day, they're going to define what hybrid means to them. And I think that
I feel like
all of us are still trying to figure this out, but hopefully there's going to be more of a playbook going forward.
And sometimes I feel insane. Like I wake up and I'm like, how are we still having this conversation? Like this still is like, we just posted on our company page and some posts about hybrid remote working, and they were our marketing people were like, we need to start posting about something else. But we posted again yesterday, and it was like some of our most active posts. And so it feels crazy that we're still having this conversation. But I guess like even today, there was news that Apple is again mandating that their employees, like the first time we talked about this, I guess it was like early, in the new year.
And they go back on their word or what?
In the new year, they basically were like, yeah, just kidding. It's not going to be, flexible. And you have to mandatory time in the office. And it was like Monday, Tuesday, Thursday that everyone had to be in the office. And that failed. And I think, we talked about how like the head of machine learning left, and, I think it was the blind app polls were showing that like 70% of the company didn't want to adhere to that policy. Goldman Sachs did a similar thing. Only 50% of people showed up when they implemented the mandatory policies. And so here we are, 8 months later, and they're trying it again. Apple is implementing a mandatory policy that is like Tuesday, Thursday, plus a flexible day that I think the employee can choose. But it just feels so off, right? One of our guests, and I can't remember if it was Beth, but someone mentioned like, you've got to listen, maybe it was Stephanie, you got to listen to your employees and what they want. And I think this is like a great case of not listening to your employees, because I could be wrong, but I don't think that's what they mean. Your employees mean by flexibility, Apple. I don't think it's like a one day, I get to choose the one day where I work. Like, I don't know, but I think it is, it shows and kind of reinforces, because we had 3 out of the 5 guests that we're talking about, they cited, the future of work, hybrid, remote, flex, whatever you want to call it, as the what's coming next in the future of work, which is interesting because we've been working through this.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm also looking at so I guess Beth gave a couple of answers, and she also talked about the concept of fractional work. So people maybe having two jobs at the same time. And I think we actually talked about this with Jill Larson from PTC back in January. She had some similar thoughts. What
David Handerhan, I think he also mentioned that he challenged the he was big on the 4-day work week, but he was also like the big on how we work and what that looks like in terms of jobs. So I'm on board with that as well. That really resonated with me.
I don't know if you saw this article. I don't know if it was an article or it was like a trending hashtag on LinkedIn, but it was talking about how employees are getting busted for doing this without telling either of their employers. And what they're doing is they're like outsourcing their work to people on Upwork, or I'm forgetting the name of the other site that's very similar, but they're taking on two jobs and just outsourcing part of their work, and they're getting busted for it. I don't think that's the way that people should do it, but I don't know. I do see a world where people have two full-time jobs where they're more or less doing the exact same thing, but for two different companies.
Yeah, and I think that the fact that a company is like, yeah, you got to commit to me, you have to be all in and nothing else in your life can be going on, work related, right? And it's almost like I own all of you. That is the work part of you is kind of a messed up way of approaching that employer employee relationship. And I think that's just ripe for disruption. It's one of those things. It's like we look back and it's like, God, that was like really weird. Just like I forget what it was, like baseball used to own the Major League Baseball. They used to own the players, like they own the contracts. And now, obviously that's changed, but it's kind of like a similar concept. But in the working world, like in the professional world, I think that's still the prevailing point of view for most companies. So, well, I am just stoked that we had so many amazing conversations that we can reflect on, that we can't even fit it all into one look back, one-on-one riff, and then we had to have a second one. So I'm looking forward to the next wave of guests. We have some really interesting guests that are coming up.
Yeah, and I think we may have alluded to this on the past couple of episodes, but be on the lookout for a new addition to our rapid fire questions. We might be swapping out one of the old questions for something new. I don't know. I think that the question of what is your definition of a modern people leader, I feel like that could be a money rapid fire question.
Same
I'd be
here.
curious to hear what people say.
Yeah, well, let's consider it like done, and I also can't wait to hear what people say on that new question. So, well, I think that's all the time we have for today, Daniel. Thanks for
One word close.
appeasing me and doing another one. So another one-on-one riff so quickly. My one word close is richness. Richness and all the amazing feedback that our guests share with us. Some serious nuggets.
Mine is going to be learn how to unlearn.
Learn how to unlearn. Damn, that's better than richness. But
yeah.
All right, my man.
That's like the general theme across the three questions.
Yeah, for sure. Well, have an awesome vacation. Enjoy Europe. I can't wait to hear all the stories when you get back.
All right, man. Thank you. Have a good rest of your week.
Talk soon. You too.
Talk to you later. Bye.
Bye.